this is my experience with learning Neville Goddard, how to manifest, and discovering who I am. So, to tell the whole story, it was about 2 years ago. Like most of you guys, I went through a really rough breakup, and that was the catalyst for me finding Neville and discovering awareness. Around the time of me breaking up with this girl, I had learned about a former classmate of mine. Now, we weren't like super good friends, but we were friends, and we sat next to each other in a lot of classes throughout high school. And I had learned about a situation where he had shot and killed his brother. Without going into too much detail, like I said, the brother was just a constant point of problems for the family. And one night, my old friend, my old classmate, he showed up drunk, and there was an altercation which resulted in him shooting and killing his brother. So he was facing life in prison, and all he had for defense was a public defender. So by the looks of things, he was screwed, man. He was going to spend the rest of his life in prison. And this was something that I had known about before the breakup had happened, before I discovered Neville or anything like that. So it always kind of sat in the back of my mind. And when I discovered Neville, I started testing it on things to try to build my faith. And so, like I said, this situation had always been in the back of my mind. And one of the things that Neville tries to teach us and tries to hammer through to us is that anything is possible. With man, nothing is possible, but with God, all things are possible. And so I realized at a certain point that if I'm going to try to adopt this kind of new thought paradigm, if I'm going to try to take on this lifestyle way of belief, then what am I doing if I'm not trying it on my old classmate's situation? Because, you know, like I said, whether we think that he deserved to go to jail for it or not, knowing all the details, it's irrelevant. I didn't want to see him spend the rest of his life in prison. And I knew that whether it was justified or not, I knew that he pulled the trigger, and I knew that all he had was a public defender for defense. So he was basically screwed. So after seeing bizarre amounts of synchronicities and the world reflect my mind, after studying Neville for a good period of time, like I said, I realized one day that I was sitting around thinking about his case and thinking about, damn, I didn't want him to go to prison. And it occurred to me, why are you not using this on him? And what it came down to when I really sat there and thought about it was that I was not testing it on his case because I looked at his case as something that was too big. He definitely killed his brother. He definitely only had a public defender to defend him. So if I was going to try that on him, on this case, well, that was too big. That wouldn't work. And when it didn't work, then my faith would be totally screwed, because that's something that's just too big. And if I tried it on something that big, well, then that just wasn't going to work. And when it didn't work, my faith would be destroyed and none of this magic would work anymore. Well, it occurred to me that if I was going to think that way, then I was totally wasting my time doing any of this, and that what was my faith if I thought that God couldn't do this? I'm wasting my time. So I resolved right then and there to put this to the extreme test. I remember the thought form in my mind, I'm going to test this here, once and for all, and if it works on this, then I will know. There will be no more questioning. I will know. So I got myself into a drowsy state. I laid down on the bed, and I imagined hearing mutual friends that I had with this person tell me that his charges had all been dropped, and we were all sitting around and hanging out, and that was just one of the things. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I imagined for this. So like, I put myself in the mood of listening to mutual friends that I had with this person tell me that all his charges were dropped, and us just kind of talking about it and me thinking about how crazy it all was. Well, I hadn't seen seen those people that I chose in my imagination to hear tell me that his charges were dropped. I hadn't seen those people in 3 years at the time that I did this imaginal act. So I did it, and I dropped it. And the reason I was able to drop it so easily is because I was so concerned with trying to manifest my ex-girlfriend back that yes, I had planted that seed, but I planted that seed and I completely forgot about it. My mind was so focused on getting back with my ex, manifesting my ex back, that I had no time to even think about that. Like, think about, is it gonna work? Even give it a second thought. I made a sincere effort to plant a seed, and then I forgot about it. I totally forgot about it. Well, it was a few months later. I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see so-and-so man found not guilty of murdering his brother. And let me tell you that I had forgotten about it so hard, and I was still so entrenched in worrying about my ex and manifesting her back, that when I saw that Facebook post, it did not even dawn on me until the next morning when I woke up. Oh my God, I imagined that. And so if that right there had happened by itself, like that alone would have been weird enough, but I can't say that I would have definitely been able to believe if this last part that I'm about to tell you didn't happen the way it happened. So the guy, he was found not guilty. The district attorney completely botched the case. Wouldn't you know it? He didn't dust the gun properly, something with the fingerprints. Basically, the district attorney totally shit the bed. And so my friend was able to get off of that life in prison sentence because of, well, the seeming cause would be the district attorney totally shit the bed, but we all know what the real cause there was. The world moved around me.
And they may not believe you. It doesn't really matter. If you tell them it came to pass because you simply imagined it. Now, they'll point to the series of events that led up to it, and they will give credit to the bridge of incident across which you walk towards the fulfillment of that state. And they'll point out some physical thing that was the cause. No, the cause is invisible.
But here's the kicker. The people that I had imagined to tell me that this guy's charges had all been dropped, I hadn't seen them in 3 years. But here's the kicker and grand finale of it all. A couple of months, maybe like 2 or 3 at the most, after I had learned about him being found not guilty, I ended up moving to a new neighborhood. And the person that I moved this neighborhood with, they did not even want me as a roommate, and they expressed it as much to me. They said, I don't want you as a roommate, but I really want to move into this new house. So they needed a person to move with them long enough so that they could get the lease on this new house that they wanted to move into, because it was in the same neighborhood as their aging mother. Anyways, I moved in with this person for a brief period of time until she got a second job. And when she got a second job, I was no longer needed as a roommate anymore, and I moved out. But guess who just happened to live in that neighborhood? The people that I had heard tell me in my imagination that this guy's charges had all been dropped. The people that I had not seen in 3 years at the time that I did this imaginal act. They just happened to live in this neighborhood that I moved into. This neighborhood that I moved into with someone who didn't even want me as a roommate, who only needed me as a temporary roommate. The world moved itself around me to the point where I was moving into a new neighborhood with someone who didn't even really want me to move in with them, to run into these people that I had not seen in 3 years so that the end scene could play out. And yes, the end scene played out.
A bridge of incident will appear in your world, and you'll walk across some series of events leading up to the fulfillment of the imaginal state. But don't give causation to any physical step that you took towards the fulfillment of it.
They invited me over to the house. It was one night, it was a UFC pay-per-view. We were all getting together and watching it, and the end scene completely played out. The person that I had heard tell me in my imagination that this guy's charges had all been dropped stood before me and told me, and we were all just kind of talking about it and how crazy it was. And would you believe that this guy's name is David? David always does the will of the Father. So I guess that's my story.
A county jury has found not guilty of murdering his brother. The studio, and there's been a lot of speculation that would be the verdict.
Yeah, I don't think most people involved in this trial believe that Bill would likely be acquitted. In some ways, wasn't on trial, but the brother that he shot was. Whoever denied he killed his brother but claimed he did so in self-defense. Testimony this week portrayed as a drug user hooked on synthetic marijuana, a thief who stole to support his drug habit. He lived with his grandmother in her home near. And last summer, he apparently stole her air conditioning unit, presumably to purchase illegal drugs. Then last he argued, and that night killed his brother. The jury struggled with this case, deliberating 2 days before finally returning the not guilty verdict.